Just a little more room, elbow room.
Well, I took a shower this morning.
Yeah.
I know.
You ready?
I mean, I could make it
Doing
big,
ya?
but then, you know.
Ready? Okay. All right, good evening, everybody, and welcome to the July meeting of the North Miami CRA Advisory Board. Can we have, first off, can we all have the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, Gary, can we have roll call, please? Blanket Cabot.
Here.
Kenneth Each. Here. Mary Estine Irvin. Michael McDinley. Present. Dr. Enoch Millian. He said he was going to be here. Jeffy Mundazil. Here. Rosalind Philippe. Here. Clark Reynolds. Mark Waller. Present. Okay. Can we have a motion to approve tonight's agenda?
Mr. Chair, if I may, we would like, it was a slight oversight. We did not add the CRA audit report. Okay. However, the auditor is here. I'd like to add this to the agenda if it's okay.
Okay, so with that addition, can we approve tonight's agenda? So moved. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Before we have that, can we have the approval of the minutes from February the 4th?
Move it.
Second?
If you remember what happened then.
Yeah, the minutes were sent out to everybody. We have a second?
We read them. Second.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay.
Mr.
All right,
Chair?
you would like to
Yes, I would like to take them first
Okay.
to get them out.
So let's go ahead and please, gentlemen, come up. Names, firm, etc. Microphone is to your left.
Give it to him. Yeah, it's fine. Yeah, that's fine.
Good evening.
Good evening.
My name is Michael Vetter. I'm the audit manager for Hardy, Covington & Thomas. We are the auditors of record for the North Miami CRA, and we're pleased to announce that in summary format that we had an unqualified opinion, which basically means the statements that were provided in the report present the results fairly for the CRA. We also had no management letter comments, which means it's operating effectively with respect to internal controls and compliance over certain issues, regulatory issues.
Okay. Does anybody have any comments, concerns, questions?
Did we get a report? Did we see a report?
Yeah, were you, have you written up a,
Yes, we did provide the audit
We,
report.
we'll give you a copy of the report. It will be presented to the CRA board. You'll get a copy beforehand. If you want, you can stop by the CRA office and pick one up, or we can mail it, whatever is convenient.
probably
How about
email?
Email? You can email, yes.
Yeah.
That's fine. Yes, okay, we can do
All
that.
right, so you don't have any particular concerns or?
None whatsoever.
It's an unqualified report?
Yes, it was a very eventless audit, which is a good thing.
Okay, well, thank you all very
Mr.
much.
Chairman,
Yes.
just a question for the record. Just
Sure.
to confirm, it was sent to the state in accordance with the statutes by the deadline, correct?
The CRA is a component unit of the city,
Right.
and as a component unit of the city then submits that information to the state.
So-
And that was completed, yes.
Yes. No, I know it's part of the city's audit. We're a dependent special district, but it was sent in.
Yes,
Right,
it was
perfect.
sent in.
Thank you. Just to clarify, the report
Mike,
for the
get
CRA.
talking to them.
The report for the CRA is included with the city's audit. Since we're a dependent special district, the statute allows a dependent special district to be reported along with the city. But in any event, under the statute, it has to be sent into the state by no later than, I think, 8 months after the end of its fiscal year, which is June 30th of 2013. So this is the report for 2011, 2012.
Correct.
Yes.
That is correct.
Thank you. So our house is in order, I think, is the bottom line.
Okay. All right, gentlemen, thank you very much.
Thank you very much, and as usual, you guys do a thorough and wonderful job, and we're happy to have you as our consultants for the CRA.
Thank you very much.
Okay, moving on to the next agenda item is going to be the funding request for Emerald Lakes Landscaping.
Yes, this is a project that the CRA has been undertaking for a while. Chief Each, who is a member of this board, has asked that we do some additional landscaping. The CRA is presenting this as a discussion for tonight's agenda. So,
Okay, do you want to speak to this?
A number of years ago, before this administration, the last administration was in office, the city came out and the Public Works Department and dropped a lot of gravel. Just, I don't know why, the gravel contained road debris, so forth and so on, around the perimeter of Emerald Lake on the city property. A little background, the lake itself is private property. Two sides of the lake, the landmass on Northeast 16th Avenue and on Arch Creek Road are owned by the city. The property along Emerald Drive and on Northeast 17th Avenue is privately owned, which abuts the lake. The lake is crystal clear. We have aerators in there. We had numerous fish. The body of oxygen on demand was absolutely excellent. It was a pristine area. And I'm going back 5-6 years to give you a little history, if not longer. The city came in and for unbeknown reasons, they wanted to build a roadway on the inside of the fence on the 16th Avenue side, on the Arch Creek side. And in doing so, they almost destroyed the lake. They poured this gravel, old road debris, road surface, what have you. And then what took place was the rains came, May, June, July, and the lake turned to mud. We lost numerous fish. So the neighbors got together, and then they made a slurry. They were going to take the runoff from the roadway and dump it into our private lake. And that was absolutely preposterous. So anyway, the neighborhood got together, and we petitioned the city, and the city came forward, and through the wise leaders of our city, they actually did save the lake. What they did was they put in the French drains, and then they landscaped the perimeter of Arch Creek Road. However, they didn't, and they landscaped some of the embankment along Arch Creek Road. However, that job was not finished, and it's still very unsightly. And we need more landscaping in there for, number one, to hold the embankment in place, and number two, for visual reasons. Johnson Wales owns part of that lake. I myself and a lot of my other neighbors own part of that lake, and we all invested very, very heavily into that neighborhood. We invested in our properties, our homes, our houses. When everybody else was moving, we stayed. We didn't leave the city. We didn't abandon the city. However, we need a few more trees up there on Arch Creek. We need some bougainvillea. We need some liriope. And we need the rest of that, the city-owned side, not private-owned side, but the city-owned side, to be correctly landscaped to where it was originally. There was a beautiful coral wall that ran the length of it, which was destroyed inadvertently, or I don't know why, by the city a number of years ago, like I say, 6 years ago. It was in there for 50 years, beautiful. Some of those boulders were put in there by hand. And now, as I look across the lake, as I gaze across there, I see a sand pit, and it's not right. And the city did a remarkable job along Arch Creek, but we would like that embankment finished. And I asked this organization for additional funding to do that. You know, it's an old, I've been here 40 years. I own 3 apartment buildings. I put a lot of money into them. I'm not a slumlord. Any one of my apartments I would live in. And the same thing with any one of my neighbors. All of them are quadruplexes, or we have access to the ocean. And Johnson Wales came in and did a remarkable job, and they spent a great deal of money landscaping the parking lot over there. on Northeast 16th Avenue and Emerald Drive. But we would like on the city side, not on the 16th Avenue side, but on the Arch Creek side, the northern part of the lake, for the landscaping to be finished, to be completed. To hold, number one, the embankment in place for obviously ecological reasons, and two, for visual beauty. Thank you very much.
Leslie?
Yes, Mr. Chair.
Has there been any numbers put to this, what it's going to take for the city to finish this?
No, we're not there. However, the funding, if this is approved by this advisory board, will go to the CRA board that will make the final decision. But the funding for projects such as this has been identified. As you all know, some time ago, each district received a certain amount of money for projects in their district. Mr. Scott Garvin had $200,000 in there, some remaining funds in that kitty that can be used for a purpose such as this.
So does anyone?
That will not come out of the CRA money then?
Not the CRA, not the budget. This is money that was set aside for project in specific districts.
All the
Okay.
different council districts.
Okay.
From the CRA?
From the CRA.
From the CRA, but not from this year's budget. This is
This is money that's already been
that's
set
already
aside in past years.
So we have 200,000.
No, you don't.
Oh.
You had, or you wish. Yeah.
Yeah.
Any idea?
Let the record reflect that Mary Esteem Irvin has joined us. Mary, welcome.
Estimate.
Welcome.
Estimate.
Okay. Mary Estime Irvin.
We had a president with that name, so that's why I know it well.
Oh, okay. So is there any further discussion on this?
I was just asking the chief, do you have any idea how much this is going to be?
I don't know, I'd say maybe in the neighborhood of 30 to 40,000, 30,000, something of that nature. I don't, we would have to actually price it out. You're looking at either scabola or seagrass to hold that embankment in place, and a few additional buttonwood trees and some bougainvillea, just to complete
I think what we're doing with this is basically getting a motion to move it to the city council, to the CRA board, and then I guess they'll, through the city staff, get estimates of what it will take to finish the city side of it, and then I guess it will come back.
Well, at this point, I don't think we have a design. We don't know what we are approving at this point. So
Well, that's what I'm
if
saying.
this body would like to have more information, we should ask staff to come up with a design, with a plan, and an estimate of cost, and then you would be in a position to vote on this.
Okay, so that would be the motion then, to move the city staff take a look at this and come back or come to us.
We can get together with the chief with a plan, an estimate, and then and move. Then you would be in a position to vote on it.
All right.
Mr. Chair, quickly,
Yes.
is there any reason why the city didn't continue with the project and just stop in the middle of it?
Didn't have any funds, I think, they ran out of funds.
I would not say that the funds were available. However, I think if we listen carefully to Chief Ichi's presentation, it's there is a lot of it is on private property, and the city. I don't know, Mr. Zerkus can correct me if I'm wrong. We normally don't spend a lot of money on private properties, especially from the CRA.
Mr.
So Prudent, yes.
Mr. Director, none of that money was spent on private property. Not one dime of that money was spent on private property. The money that came forth was spent on city property and city property only.
The landscaping that's on your side?
No,
was
sir,
not-
the landscaping that is on my side, the thousands of dollars of landscaping that's on Emerald Drive, I put in. I paid for that out of my own pocket.
Okay.
Not a dime, the sprinkler system, not a dime of that is city money. In fact, many years ago, on the right-of-way, a lot of people don't know this, I put in my own curbs and paid a double fee permit on the right-of-way, to put my own curbs in. And when I came back from Illinois, the city came in, I spoke to Scott Galvin, and they ran the curbs the rest of the way, which is also on the city right-of-way. Nothing, not a dime of that money was spent on private property. The Arch Creek side of the lake is owned by the city. The 16th Avenue side is owned by the city. There's a chain link fence that the city put up that surrounds that. They don't own the body of water, but they do own the land. And the city had actually destroyed it at one time. And you missed the first part of this, Mary, that they had endangered the lake. They were running their runoff from the roadway into a private lake, and the lake turned to mud, we lost fish, and so forth and so on. So they did come up and they did spend money landscaping around the lake. Also, they did landscape the railroad right-of-way, which was being used as a dump, and the city put curbs, sidewalks, so forth and so on, but only on the city right-of-way. Not a dime was spent on the, I put money in there over 30 years. Rocks, boulders, waterfalls, you name it, I did it.
Mr. Chair, at the next advisory meeting, I will have the people from Public Works who actually did all the work, and they will give us a report of what they did and how much it costs. At the same time, they will have an estimate of what it will cost to complete this project.
Okay, do we have, have a motion to that effect?
Yeah.
Yes?
Yes. I'd like to move what we recommended by.
Okay, your motion is that we ask city staff to come at our next meeting. Okay.
Before we
The
get into a motion.
the mic.
I mean, I have a couple questions, and I have a little concern about perhaps Mr. Each voting on the matter. So, if you don't mind, could I just, for a couple minutes, have the floor, Mr. Chair? I mean, first of all, I want to just understand, so I can analyze this from a legal perspective. This is a project that would only be on city-owned property. Is that correct? So what we're discussing is that the CRA is going to fund the city so that the city can do its part. We're not going to administer the project. We're not going to go out and hire the landscaper. We're not going to. So the city's going to bid it out. They're going to do all the work. We're just going to be the funding mechanism.
Right.
And we're talking somewhere between $20,000, $30,000, $40,000, $50,000. Okay. So, and this is coming in under the swale and improvements money that we give to the different districts from our budget. Okay. Mr. Each, for you, I mean, my only concern is that, and I know you live in the area, I don't want there to be any sort of, I guess, conflict of interest, or someone claim there's a conflict of interest with you. I mean, on the record, are you going to receive any sort of direct or indirect special benefit to your personal self if this project is completed?
No, not at all. Let me show you this is Emerald Drive. This is the city right away. What we're talking about is this piece of land over here on Northeast 16th Avenue. My residence, the properties that I own and others on this side of the lake.
On the other side of the lake. Yeah.
This is all the city public right away.
So I guess my question is, in order to avoid any sort of appearance of a conflict of interest, if this project is completed, is it going to increase the value of your property?
I don't think so.
Yes,
You don't think so?
It's on the other side of the lake, at least we're trying.
I mean, I'm not the ethics commission, and I'm not the one who tells someone to vote or not to vote. I'm just bringing up the issue.
Maybe for to be on the safe side, I should abstain.
Okay.
Yeah.
You're going to recuse yourself from the vote. Okay. Well, we'll have to fill out a form to that effect anyway, then, and submit it. All right.
Okay.
That being the case, I don't think I have any more questions at this time.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr.
Okay, so I think, Mr. Mondesir, let
Before I
me...
make my motion, I want to hear Rosaline's comment.
No, I was just, because in listening to this, it seemed like, am I being picked up?
No,
Yeah,
I think you're being picked up over there.
Thank you. To me, it seemed like Chief is asking for us to basically move this forward to the board and ask them, hey, under the swale and yada, yada, yada,
Improvement project.
Councilman Galvin may have X amount of dollars, and this is something that the city first destroyed to begin with, so we're asking the city to come back and do right by this area. So I don't think it's putting us in, and we're not giving money. I mean, if the money is allotted already, you know, now it's really Councilman Galvin who really has to move the ball forward. And
So basically, so your motion would be to request the city staff to come to our next CRA board meeting with a prospectus of what needs to be done and how much.
A history of what has been done, yes,
And
a
what has to be
history of what was done and a plan for this one, how
Okay.
much it's going to
Yeah,
cost.
that-
And
I think that's what we said, yeah.
Pretty much.
Okay.
Committee meeting, right? Not board meeting.
The advisory committee meeting, exactly. Okay, is there a second to that? Is there a second? Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay.
Okay, motion
All right,
carries.
the next item is going
What's the
to, pardon?
Everybody was.
Minus,
Everybody was aye.
And everybody.
Everybody minus
Minus
chief abstained
Chief
from
each who
voting.
abstained from the voting. Let the record reflect that he abstained from the voting also, please. The next item is discussion by Mark Wolin regarding the park improvement and entryway for Griffin Park. I believe we have some people here who want to speak on the issue. Mark, would you like to speak first, or Max, would you like to?
Okay, no, I'll do it,
Okay.
or start it at least. I don't know if I should take the podium. I'll take the podium.
Okay.
But this is all formality aside, this is a continuation of a
Would you-
conversation.
Introduce yourself and address for the record.
Sure. I'm Mark Wolin, 560 Northeast 124th Street.
Okay, all right.
And you're appearing in your capacity?
That's as an independent.
No, I'm not.
I'm a private citizen.
No, sir. No, Mr. Zelkowitz. I'm here in my capacity as a member of the City of North Miami Business Development Board.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
The clarification.
And I'm joined by the chairman of your Business Development Board, Mr. Max Sturman-Wolf, and our vice chairman, Ms. Adriana Savino, and Barry Miller of Savino Miller, who is Adriana's husband and partner, and these are landscape architects and urban planners with offices here in downtown North Miami, not just in this agency's area of operation, but in the redevelopment area. Out of the business, we've talked this through before, and out of the Business Development Board came the idea that it would be a wonderful thing if we could make some design improvements to Griffin Park. Griffin Park is kind of an underdeveloped piece of park land at the portal of the city. And, hi Enoch, how you doing?
Let the record reflect that Pastor Enoch has joined us.
The business,
Enoch Milliam.
the Business Development Board believes that what's good for business in the community are things that deal with the quality of life, safety and security on the streets, good schools, good recreational opportunities in the parks. And so it's a quality of life issue. We happen to have in the neighborhood the design team that did the design work at South Point Park in Miami Beach. And they've got skin in the game. You know, they're right here like you and me. They own property in the community, in the redevelopment area. It's a blighted area there. If you're not familiar with it, come, let's get together, because I live right across the street from it. And improving the park with some design improvements would help catalyze, I hope, property improvements in the area, and is something that we can work with Parks and Recreation on. We took this idea to Parks and Recreation, and I have been, vested with the authority of the Parks and Recreation Commission to communicate to you their endorsement of this exciting idea. The next step in the process, and this board joined with the Parks Commission and the Business Development Board in approving the idea. Well, then this is the next step in the process. I'm going to ask you to recommend that the agency, through its administration, commission a charrette for the sum of for a sum of money not to exceed $49.99, $4,999 for a charrette, to charrette this project as the first step and as a predicate to the issuance of a request for I forget, it's a request for proposals or request for quotes. I get the nomenclature confused. There you are. The idea is ideally the people who are going to be doing the design should conduct the charrette. I don't think I have to talk about that. That makes a lot of sense, right? That's pretty obvious. Okay. And we'd love to get these people to do it because of their experience and their proximity to the project. Anyway, that's it. I want to take this opportunity before I introduce Max and Adriana to make some comments and remarks. I think you all saw Adriana's presentation at our last meeting, and I know it's online if you missed it, but I want them to supplement my remarks, and we'll throw it open for questions. I would like to take this opportunity before I leave the mic to thank Steve Johnson for putting it on the agenda, and Leslie too. Appreciate it very much, and appreciate your serious and favorable consideration. Remember all those little businesses that we help for sums of money in multiples for the pittance that I'm asking you for this afternoon, something that the community will enjoy, something that's in it for everybody. And it's a wonderful thing for the community if we can make it to happen for all of us. And, you know, there's no reason to oppose something like this. Okay. So thank you. Max? Sure. Mr. Chairman?
Thank you.
My pleasure.
Thank you, Mark.
My pleasure.
To the board, three points. Mark covered most of them. The Griffin Park, we have the opportunity to make that a central park at the core of the city, and it's a couple of blocks away from our downtown area, so it's within the reach of the downtown area. Every city has a park like that. Most cities have more than one. So we have the opportunity to take the things that are there, the different pieces that haven't yet been tied together and hopefully will be, and turn it into something that becomes the heart of the city. Second, it also becomes the impetus for smaller future pocket parks, because when the board and the citizens and the rest of the city and the rest of the area see what happens in that area, hopefully we'll be able to take pieces of the design from that and start placing them in other little places in the city. Greening the cities makes a big difference, and hopefully the goal is that eventually we don't have a city of North Miami with a bunch of little parks. We have this park called North Miami that happens to have buildings in it. Third, the point of the charrette, the entire concept of it is that everybody in the city is involved. They're all invited, and it's more than invited. We want everybody there to participate, from staff members to council members to CRA board members to citizens. Everybody gets to get involved and give their piece of advice because it's their park. The last point is that Mark brought this up. We're very lucky to have a team that's in our city that has designed many similar parks and recreational areas and just streetscapes. They've got it. They understand how it works. They got a handle on the process. They can make it happen very well and very quickly, and the Business Development Board supports this very strongly. This is one of the few things in our meetings that has been unanimous at every single meeting. So, thank you for listening.
Thank you, Max.
Yep.
Great. Adriana, did you want to make remarks?
I don't think I should.
Okay, I can understand that. Anybody have any questions, please?
I have a comment.
Yes, please.
I last summer had the privilege of one of the things that I wanted to do. We have a monument in Savannah that was sponsored by the local community here in North Miami. And through that whole process, I got to meet what they call the Downtown Development Authority. I had never been in that city before, but if you travel through that city, you'll see the little parks, just like Max is talking about. And in talking with the director of the Downtown Development Authority, he was telling me how much money they spent on these little parks and how much it came back to them multifold in the businesses that came in, the usage of the parks by the people. It's just a win-win situation for the businesses, but it's a win-win situation for the city. That park has tremendous potential that's been lying dormant for many, many years. So I think it's a wonderful idea.
Mr. Chair.
Yeah.
Staff has many concerns. While we support development of a different design and use for Griffin Park, we have many issues that are troublesome to us at this point regarding the way this is being presented. Number one is if we're going to have a design team, I think we should have a competitive process where other people can come and submit their ideas and we can decide as a group or as an advisory board and as the board where we're going with this. Second of all, and most importantly, one of our concerns is this particular firm was given some work by the city and the design was not up to par and it ended up costing the city additional money. If you guys need more details regarding that, I can have staff come and give you a report. I basically talk to you about what was done and how it was corrected. And last of all, you know, we just had an election and we're marching to a different sound bit. Mr. Bien-Aimé, who is now the councilman for that district, has some ideas for this particular park. He may even want to build a community center there. So I think we need to put everything to consider all these issues before we move this forward to the board. And that would be my recommendation.
May I respond?
Yes.
Thank you. I hear you, Leslie. And if you want to go that way, you go that way. But this is an opportunity to do something that's not political, that's designed around one criteria only: design excellence. Nothing else. And if you want to continue to run the process politically like that, as you have, and I don't mean you personally, I mean the entire agency, and allow me to finish, we will continue in the vein we have by supporting this ad hoc project and that ad hoc project instead of moving forward coherently on a strategic idea that's designed around excellence only, where everybody's invited to give their input, to create a vision. Mary.
Chair,
Yeah.
I'm concerned, and I don't like the personal attacks based on the facts that I've heard tonight. Park, beautiful idea, but our CRA coordinator raised to me a valid point that, and I don't know these people, that project has been done and it wasn't satisfactory.
Well, let's put it on the table.
Right. So based on that, Mark, with all due respect,
Sure.
I think we need to at least allow that due process to happen, that we get the necessary information,
Sure.
and that we as an advisory board first of all decide. And then furthermore, like was mentioned, that this is a new administration in terms of elected bodies, and so this is real, and even though it's a good idea, we can lobby for that idea, and that's fine.
Yeah.
But I think the attacks, we have to stop.
I don't think I attacked anybody.
I thought.
Who did I attack and what did I say? I said that the process has been politicized. I didn't comment on anybody. And if anybody interpreted, allow me to finish. If anybody interpreted anything I said against a personal attack against any individual, I'd like to apologize to him publicly right here and right now while I've got the mic. I don't own the thought. My thought is that this whole agency has been politicized. And allow me to finish. My term here is going to end here presently. I'm just a temporary visitor. So I'm trying to give what I have to give. And this is what I have to give for you. And if there's something about it you don't like, well, you can reject it. In the meantime, Leslie, if you have some issue with this design team, let's put it on the table.
And that goes back to my point. That would be more fair.
Go ahead.
Go ahead. Let's bring it up. Let's stop making unnecessary comments. Let's deal with facts.
My comments are necessary.
It's
Leslie,
not
let's put it on the
necessary
table.
when
What do you
we're saying
have?
that let's stop politicizing this, when simply somebody just made a statement that, okay, here are certain possibilities. Let's look into all possibilities.
Listen.
Yeah.
I find that to be a
Please. I think the whole thing can be summed up very simply.
Is your mic
I
on?
don't think it's on.
Yeah.
I don't think it's on. It does sound like you. Okay, yeah, you're on. Yeah, you're on. You're on.
Yeah, the,
Even you
Some
want
of
I
it's,
to
think
budget.
that,
Dunya, can you pick that up? Well, she's not even back there.
okay. Okay, this better?
You can pick it up? Good,
Is this-
okay.
Is this better? Okay.
Okay, now.
I think what Mark Wolin is trying to ask for, and I think we can legitimately move it on to the city council. You know, Leslie Perdon is right, our administrator is right. We have a new council. We have several new members on the new council, 3 out of the 5. So we don't know what all of their agendas are. Perhaps in fairness to everybody concerned, and I'd certainly like to see something happen to that park, but we don't know what other people's plans are for that facility and park. So perhaps maybe, in all fairness, what we can do is just say we'd like to see the idea of a charrette addressed by the city, by the CRA board, with a maximum expenditure of $5,000. And if they say, no, we don't want to do that, we want to do something else, then we'll let them do something else. Mary?
I motion that we go back to staff based on what our CRA coordinator has said, that we go and we first of all look into, they're proposing this idea, but this company, well, maybe I don't have to do that, but I have a problem with, I don't have a problem with the charrette. I don't have a problem with the idea. I have a problem when the organization had an issue with the city. So I have a problem with that. And I don't have a problem with moving forward after having the facts.
Well, that's what I'm saying.
My recommendation is that we take it back to staff, we get the proper information, and he brings it back to us so that we have a clear understanding moving forward, period. That's my motion.
Mr. Wolin?
I don't know what the problem is. I'm at a disadvantage.
Well, Mr.
Just a
Wolin, let
second,
me.
Leslie. Just a second, I got the floor. I've been recognized by the chair. It is difficult for me to, Mr. Attorney, may I speak?
Yeah.
I'm not the chairman.
Yeah.
Okay. I think it's unfair, Leslie, for you to publicly criticize these folks in an open room without putting the criticism on the table. And if you have a legitimate issue, I would like to hear it.
Well, this is, first off, we have a motion on the
I
floor.
have a motion and a question for the,
All right, we have a motion on the floor, and you have a question for our
Is there a
staff
question?
council.
is it?
I would like to first hear if we have a second to the motion, then we can discuss.
I'll second for discussion.
Thank you.
Okay, we
Was
have
it
a motion, a second, go ahead.
Right, is it improper what our coordinator has done, that someone has a presentation and has made a concern, was that improperly done?
Excuse me, I had the floor on a pending question.
No,
point
no,
of
but she
procedure.
had filed a motion, just.
For
hold on.
discussion.
For
And in
dis-
connection with that
Well,
discussion, the question to the
No,
coordinator is,
no,
what's the problem with Miller
Mis-
Sabino?
m-
And I don't
Mr.
want to have to
Mr.
argue to
Mr.
fight.
Mr. Wolin, please. There was a motion and a second. Mary has asked the question of our staff attorney, Mr. Zelkowitz.
I don't really think it's a question of proper versus improper. I mean, staff is giving us their opinion as to what may have occurred or may not have occurred. I mean, there's many instances where staff says, okay, folks did a great job, folks didn't do a great job. Okay, and that's the staff's position on this particular matter. I mean, and we'll get to it because I'd like to have a couple of moments after we have your discussion. There's some legal issues regarding this whole thing as well, because I think that there's some hurdles that need to be overcome before the CRA does anything when it comes to a project like
Well,
this.
can you tell us what the hurdles are before?
Well, I mean, first of all, I guess what I'm hearing again is that the CRA is going to be the funding source for this particular project.
Yes.
Okay. Are we being asked just to fund the design of the project or the entire design, construction,
And maintenance.
and maintenance of the project?
None of the above.
None of the above. So what is the CRA being asked to do?
The CRA is being asked to spend $4,990, not more than, to commission a charrette to be conducted by Miller Sabino to provide the basis of design improvements to Griffin Park.
And
That's all.
who's contracting with Miller Servino?
The CRA.
Is this project in our plan, our redevelopment plan? Why would we spend money on a project that's not in our plan, I guess is my question.
Well, our plan does not specify any particular project, Mr. Zelkowitz. We fund projects all day long that is not specifically identified in the plan.
Such as?
Mr. Each's Emerald Lakes plan is not in the project. We can start with that.
That's not a project. That is expenditure of funds for the swale and improvements. Mr. Schnidman's here tonight because we are contemplating amending our redevelopment plan. And if we do, and this is a project we want to do, then this would be something we'd put into our new plan. That's all I'm saying.
This specific project, to my knowledge, I don't know whether or not it's specifically identified in the plan or not. But after sitting here since 2006, I can't think of a single specific project that was specifically identified as being in or out of the plan. It's been my position throughout that our plan is not in fact a plan. I hope that's responsive to your question.
Yes.
The CRA has programs, and under these programs we have facade renovation, for example. We have business assistance program. We have first-time home buyer. All these are in our development plan.
Yeah.
We have neighborhood beautification. When you look at the circles, that's all part of our development plan.
But let me
So-
just get back to my legal questions, because my understanding from what I'm hearing, Mr.
Put down.
Director, Coordinator, is that this group already did work for the city?
Yes.
Were they
this-
competitive, and they were competitively selected, or whatever basis the city
They were,
selected them? So why wouldn't the city just continue with their contract and the CRA be the funding agent, if anything? I don't see any reason, if we're gonna engage someone to do a charrette, I mean, as I've heard, we would likely have to go through a process.
No, if you
Why?
forgive me, I'm sorry
Yes.
to interrupt you. If the sum of money to be spent is less than $5,000, a competitive bidding process is not necessary, according to the advices I've received from the city attorney.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
since Mr. Rowland insists, I'm going to put it on the table.
Please, by all means.
This,
Before you put it
Wait a
on the
minute,
table.
let's try and stay with the facts of what we're trying to do here without getting into, please. If we, at first, we have some questions and some board members. Rosalind, you wanted to say something?
The only thing I want to say is that for years we've talked about how certain things that we want to do, that the CRA can back up so that, it could be something big to show. As this would be, I have no problem with the concept because I think it's so wonderful when I looked at what was presented last time. Granted, it was months ago. And even with new representative, even Councilman Bien-Aimé, if he had planned for the community center, I think these are all things that can tie into it. My only concern is when we're talking about, okay, we want this and we already have someone identified. That's my only problem. Because I don't think we should be picking. I think we should say, these are the things that we would like to see that the CRA, and then let staff go out there and bring us whoever, to do what it is that we would like to see done.
Then
Mr.
you
Chair, I
wouldn't-
thought I had the floor.
Then
I thought I had the floor.
Thank you.
All right. You have the floor. Go ahead.
Thank you.
Well,
Thank you.
The other question I had, is this a project, because what I'm hearing is the city's already engaged Miller Sorvino in the past. Is this a project that's in the city's capital improvement plan at all within the last 3 years? Because it's the same issue I brought up to your attention on the sidebar with Mr. Eaches.
No.
Okay.
Look,
Because that's something we can't fund. And the question of whether it is legal to contract without going to a competitive process or not doesn't mean we wouldn't want to. We've had instances in the past where we didn't have to do it, but we did it because we wanted to pick someone rather than using someone that someone brought forward. But that is besides the point.
Look,
So
if
I
you-
yield the floor at this point.
Well,
Thank you.
let me ask you,
Mr. Chair, do I get back
Yeah,
to
well,
floor?
he's not finished yet.
Yeah,
No, I
okay.
said I yield the floor.
So the question is this kind of thing in our plan? What he's talking about.
Parks improvement overall, I'm
Funding a charrette is that one of the things that I think those of us
Parks
who,
improvement is in our redevelopment plan.
including
I was
Mr.
hearing that there was a particular project.
And that would be a process to get to your parks improvement, I mean, but you
Okay.
have to go through the process.
All right, Mr.
Excuse me, can I speak? Since I think I'm in the middle of this discussion, can I speak?
Well, please, he has the floor. We'll
Thank
let him
you.
Speak
Okay.
afterwards.
Thank you. Thank
I
you.
appreciate if I can speak.
Sure. Basically, a project was given to this firm, and that's specifically Pioneer Boulevard. If you go to 6th Avenue, the entrance of Pioneer Boulevard,
I can't hear you.
the Pioneer Boulevard, the entrance of Pioneer Boulevard, 6th Avenue and 137th Street. Whereas the design that was presented was defective, and it was built according to that design, and it cost the city additional money. And basically the problem with the design was the location of the electrical outlets for this project. We have a beautiful pond, and we had electrical meters and all the wires, all the stuff in front of the design. It cost the city some money. I could give you specific numbers, at least $15,000 to $25,000 to move it and correct what was presented that was defective.
Well, thank you very much, Leslie. Let's hear the other side.
Okay, ma'am, you want to?
My name is Adriana Sabino.
In the mic.
Please
My name
introduce.
is Adriana Sabino. I'm the president of Sabino and Miller Design Studio. I'm also the vice chair of the Business Development Council here in the city of North Miami. And first of all, in regards to Griffin Park, as part of the board, we developed an idea based on the situation in general of the open space in the city of North Miami. And we were looking for a project, something to propose to the city for a site that seems to have all the opportunities, all the elements to become a special open space and bring some income to the city and create a catalyst for development in one area. And we identify, I'm an urban designer, and we have done a lot of parks there, and we identify Griffin Park because it has a community center, has water, is in the gateway of the city, is the only park in the downtown area that seems to have has a nice residential community around, has older people, younger people, etc., and it's underutilized. So we thought this is a great project that if everybody comes together can become a great park. And we brought it as an idea to the development corp. We created a presentation, and we brought it to parks, and parks seemed also very interested. And we thought, well, this is great. Let's leave it like that. We brought it here, and I think some of the issues that came from that presentation was that it needed to be a program for that park, and we all agree in that. And funding, but where do we start to have that funding and that program for the park? And the idea was, well, let's create a visioning session so we can bring all the parties involved and create a program for this park, and what ideas can come up from the community, from the city, from the staff, etc., and then develop a program, and then develop a budget, and then develop, then we can go to an RFQ and RFP. That's the whole idea. Since we started the process, I think the idea was to, and I recuse myself in all the voting, but since we are here, I want to clarify that. That's the first point. The second point is in regards to Pioneer Boulevard. We are in the miscellaneous services with the city of North Miami. And one of the projects that we were hired to do is the Pioneer Boulevard fountain. I think the entry area, that used to be just a wall with some planters, and we went to the historical, etc., and the idea was to develop that into a fountain. The service for that fountain, when we were hired, first of all, the budget for the fountain was $150,000. The fountain, eventually, I think Councilman Marcellus found $250,000 to do the project. Our fee was based on $150,000 to start with. Our consultants the city ended up hiring some consultant on their own, and our consultants did the project based on the information the city gave us, the electrical information and the irrigation, all the information the city gave us. The city had those plans. They never gave us where the service was located. In fact, we based, assuming what the city told us to assume, that the electrical service was like almost at the fountain where the frog pond was. We assumed that location. Our consultant, I don't do electrical plans, our consultant, Luis Aguirre and Associates, assumed what the city told us to assume, and we did the service from that location. When the contractor came, the contractor the city hired in a competitive process, the guy sent an RFI, but he bid the project because we didn't have construction services, by the way, with the city. The city couldn't afford the construction services to us. So the city sent the RFI after the fact, after they had hired a contractor with an assumed fee. The contractor bid on the project saying that they were going to build it for such and such money. And they knew that the service wasn't, they are supposed to investigate the site and be familiar with all the issues that the project has. And they bid the project based on that. So what happened was they sent the RFI afterwards, and there was no money for us. And I requested additional services that I have, up to date, I haven't been paid for. To respond that, my consultant did the work without asking for additional money. We are still waiting for those additional money that I think is $3,200, and we haven't been paid for that. But we did the RFIs, we did everything. The city, they had to complete the service, the electrical service, but they did it without us having to, without being paid, basically. So I want to keep that for the record. And up to date, we haven't been paid the additional services, none of us. So I want to make clear that I was there.
Mr. Chair, the issues with payment with the city has nothing to do with the CRA. My position is basically that the city has some, the CRA doesn't have a crew that builds stuff. We subcontract everything that we do to the city. And when the city staff tells us they have an issue with a contractor, we have to bring it to your attention. Whatever decision you make is up to you. However, we have to do due diligence and bring the information to you.
My name is Barry Miller. I'm a landscape architect, Savino and Miller Design Studio. I'm a principal also. We came here after doing, as Adriana has alluded to, after doing many countless hours of pro bono work for the city of North Miami and for our neighborhood to help improve the neighborhood. We put together presentations. We've assisted planning department. We've been with the parks department. We've been at CRA before, as you know, some time ago. We've done a lot of work pro bono for the city. So I am personally aghast and a little bit offended that we can be blindsided like this at a public meeting by a gentleman who has not been involved one bit with one phone call, with one email, with one correspondence, with one meeting on this project that he's talking about. He knows nothing about what happened with this project or the process of it. All due respect, that's the truth. That's the fact. What I'm asking for next time, before you do this, for our reputation, and for yours, frankly, it's to sit down and talk to us about the project genesis and what happened before you start throwing around mud. Thank you very much.
Mr. Chair, I'm not going to go back and forth. Basically, I'm not here for that. Staff has concerns. I brought those concerns to your attention. If you want to have staff come here and give you a detailed report as to what happened, they will be available to do that.
Well, let me, before we continue on, this is really...
All right, make some more questions, too.
Okay,
I'm
sorry. My question is...
Your mic's not on.
Take that one. Take that one.
Yeah. My question is that if this is something that everybody wants, if this is something everybody wants to do, if everybody thinks this is a good idea for the park, perhaps we can move it on to at least discussion at the board level without trying to set any parameters as to who's going to do what. In other words, if we think $4,999 or $5,000 or what have you, or we can do it without funding. We could just say that we believe that it's a good idea to do something with Griffin Park, and we suggest a charrette, and then let them figure out the process of how it's going to get done, the RFPs that will have to be in place to get it done, to get the numbers and everything else. Or they may just say, no, period. I mean, they may say, we have other ideas for Griffin Park. End of story. I think we're really limiting ourselves, perhaps, if this concept is something that we really want to move forward, by limiting it to who's going to do what and how much it's going to cost. I think doing something with the Griffin Park's a great idea. Now, I don't know what Councilman Viena may have in mind, but I think that it's, that's is something should be done with Griffin Park. That's a good idea. Let's just move the concept along and just lay it in the hands of the board and let them figure out what they're going to do from there.
Mr. Chairman?
Yeah.
Mr. Chair.
One second.
On that idea, Mr. Chair, if I may, if this is moved to the CRA board, staff is going to be available to provide a detailed report as to what happened with the other projects.
Yeah.
Mike, may I please be heard?
Wait a minute. One other. The city staff attorney has a point.
Well, it was much more than a point, just a question, because I'm still confused as to what we're actually would be sending on to the CRA board. I guess first was Miller Sorvino, and whether you can answer for them, Mr. Wolin, or one of the two partners who are here, ever engaged by the city and paid for doing the work for Griffin Park that has been done to date? Answer is no. Not engaged formally by the city. And what you're asking us for is to approve up to $4,000 some odd at some point, $5,000 to provide a charrette of what can be done. And then what are you looking to do after that?
I'm going to formally withdraw any request for Savina Miller Design Studio to come before the CRA and ask for $4,999, and to please, under another process, because the general tone and the nature of the whole discussion, just,
Very bad. Very bad.
And it's not. I'm not saying it's very bad. I'm just saying it's disturbing the way it's gone. And if there's any kind of, that's not the way to start a project. Well, we want to start a project with good ideas and bringing people together and talking about ideas. That's the whole idea of the charrette in the first place was not really to do a design. It's just to get people together like we are now and to talk about ideas, like Adriana said, and make a program. This is what everybody in the city of North Miami wants. That's.
Right. Can I finish then?
We entertain RFQs and RFPs every day. We'd be happy to go through that process. We don't want to be singled out or given any kind of special dispensation for the work. So, if you'd like, please withdraw the request, and we'll be happy to help in any capacity later on. Okay?
Mr. Chair, if I can just finish. I mean, to Mr. Miller and Ms. Sorvino, I mean, I'm not here making any sort of personal judgments or statements about the project or you all or anything. I mean, I was not briefed. I'm just trying to understand so I can advise my client from a legal perspective as to how we can accomplish what the client may or may not want to accomplish. That's all I'm trying to do. So I'm trying to understand that. And if this committee wants to go forward and recommend that something be done with Griffin Park, that you feel that we should go forward and do some sort of study or charrette, with or without these folks, and go through a process and put it in our amended plan that Mr. Schnittman may be doing, and have public funding for it, I mean, that's up to you. I'm just trying to understand what the request is, because the agenda item is just says discussion. So I'm just trying to understand what action would be taken on something that says discussion. That's all.
Steve, the idea was, I try to make it as simple as I could. The idea is we have this park that needs to be improved. We've got nationally renowned designers in the hood who are dedicated to the community. Put it together, and doesn't that make sense? Now, if you don't like that idea, Mary, Leslie, if you don't like that idea, okay, no problem. I would think you would throw your hats in the air and say, isn't this great? But no. Instead, allow me to finish, because this is my last word on the subject. We're all friends. I've been coming to this room and sitting at this table since 2006. I've been going to that business development board since 2000. I'm more than disappointed that I would bring something like this before you, only to have these good people publicly accused of wrongdoing. That was beyond the pale. I'm more than disappointed in that. And I just don't know what to do. I just don't know where to go from there. So I'm not much of a politician, as you all can tell. I just happen to live here and believe in good parks, and grew up in a town where they had an abundance of them, and thought that this would be beneficial to the community. So you all, you're a great board, and I know you'll do good things. And Max wants to make a parting comment.
Mr. Chair? Do I have the
Mr.
floor?
Chair?
Do I have the floor?
Max, before you do.
Okay.
Leslie, go ahead.
Who has the floor? I do?
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you, thank you. Let the record reflect that everything that was brought on the table was at the request of Mr. Rowland. I said there were some issues. I didn't want to go into any detail. He's the one who insisted that I put the details on the floor.
And you had no personal knowledge about them, did you?
I have personal knowledge about the project.
Okay. Max,
That
one last word. and then Mary.
irrespective of all of that, the reason that we're here, I've only been on the business development board for 4 years, but if you go through the minutes of all of our meetings every month for the last 4 years, and however many years everybody else was involved, we've come up with numerous ideas for projects. And our frustration on the board, not with you, amongst ourselves, is that so many times we would end up creating another subcommittee so that we could study what we've already studied. And I'm talking about our business development board. And we study something, and then we come back, and then we talk to the city, and then to the CRA, and to whatever. We've gone through the UL design. We've gone through a lot of things, and there have been some good things that have happened in the city because of it. But the biggest issue is that in the last 4 months, 5 months, actually, it was earlier than that because Mark was still chairman, is we thought that we came up with a project that could impact everybody in the city instead of one small area. We talked about signage on one particular street, or how can we enhance Northwest 7th Avenue, or what can we do on Dixie Highway. And this is amongst ourselves. We're always talking about, we're trying to represent our little areas, and we finally found a project amongst ourselves that we all agreed. And we got excited about it, and it took us this many months to get here because first we felt out the city, different people. Then we went to the Parks and Recreation. Then we came back to us. Then we went to Parks and Recreation again. We went through everything, every process that we could think of, trying to make this a reality. And then we talked about having a charrette. And I've been involved in charrettes before, leading them. They've been involved in charrettes before. But what happened is we always say, how are we going to fund it? And Danny will tell you, we always say, well, we have X dollars. We can't do it. So how can we come up with a process and a system so that we can get to a point that we can fund it? And we say, how much can the CRA spend on something in the city without trying to go out and doing the process and the bidding and everything? Not that we're trying to hide it, because we didn't know how we were going to do it yet. But I know that the team that I was involved in for Key Biscayne, that charrette was $22,000. I know that the one up in Hollywood, that they had spent something like $16,000-$17,000. So we said, okay, what do we think we can get away with and get somebody to help us? And we didn't know how we were going to do it yet, but we started talking about it. And of course, the seed was born, and here we are. So Savino and Miller has withdrawn. I just heard them. I'm sure that they're very disappointed, and yet I know them well enough to know that if somebody were to ask them, how can you help us, they're still going to help you and help us and help anybody here. But the point is that this is a way to get something started that the Business Development Board can stand behind. I mean, our goal is how do we increase business, increase taxes, increase the lifestyle in this city. This is an awesome city. And I'm tired of listening to the criticism of our city, because the reality is, if you don't, if people want to say that we're not as good as that city or as big, okay, I can take that, because that only means we can only go up. I've seen the big ones go down. We got a long way to go, but we can do it. And our Central Park and that whole area, getting all of the commissioners and all of the CRA board members and all the business development board members and all the businesses involved, the charrette is just a place to come up with ideas that count. And you mentioned that one commissioner has an idea for community center. That's awesome. Then they need to be there too. The whole point of the charrette is that everybody comes in, but you have professionals guiding the charrette on a board, on a wall, so that we get all these ideas, and then they codify it into something that can be presented to the city to be used.
Okay.
And that's it.
Okay, thank you, Max.
So, thank you. And
Well,
that's all. I'm
Mary-
speaking for the, excuse me, Mike.
Mary?
Mike, this is from the Business Development Board and everybody on there that we've gone through this conversation.
Have you, the Business Development Board, as a board, taken this to the city council?
No, this was the first step. In all of our meeting minutes, we've gone through this back and forth. Actually, there was a presentation from Parks and Recreation. They presented to the council after approval of Parks and Recreation, and then Parks got involved with us again, trying to create a better concept of how to work with this.
Okay,
So-
Mary?
All right. So for the record, I just want to let everyone here know that I don't have a problem with the idea. When Mark was presenting the idea, I thought it was a beautiful idea. My only concern was, as we do with any other project that's brought in front of us, any other grant approval, is if we have issues, if we have concerns, let's just take it back, let's just get some more information so we can move on. I do not have, as a business owner myself, it is commendable that you would come and you think about our city, the city that I live in. So I appreciate that. This is not a personal attack. This is not a political move like Mark is suggesting, and I'm offended by that, Mark. This is as a member.
No.
As
Well,
a member, I
Mark,
have the floor
please.
now.
Let's
As
let,
a member, he has mentioned my name and Leslie's name specifically, and I'm specifically answering to that, because that's a big accusation, or or you're implying something that's not there, and that's not fair. Anybody can look at any tapes of this meeting. I am fair to anything that's presented here, and I don't want business owners in the city or residents or anyone else thinking anything other than that. As with anyone else, if there is an issue as a board, I just feel like, you know what, let's get some more information. It could have been, she just explained something, I don't know. It could have been like, well, we didn't have knowledge based on what we had, and we could have said, they really didn't have the knowledge, let's give them a chance, or let's move forward. All I want is to do what is best for our city,
Well, that's
for our
why-
residents,
that's
and for
why
our
I
business
said
owners. That's
that-
it.
that's why I
So
said-
I will not be painted as though I'm making this a political move. I am not.
No,
I don't know
this
that
is-
thought.
This is why I suggested earlier that if the board likes the idea of a charrette and doing something with Griffin Park, let's move the concept along without any parameters and let the CRA board deal with that, and what they want to do with it, how much money they want to put out, who they want, how they want to handle, who's going to be involved. We're here to try and bring ideas to the CRA board, not telling them how much to spend or how much to. They usually come to us. Staff usually comes to us with the facts and figures. They may come back to us and say the board loved it, and they want us to fund $25,000 for it. But that's for them to decide, not for us to decide. I don't think.
But as responsible board members or advisory members, we have that due diligence of saying, you know what, let's look into this. What is wrong
Well,
with that?
that's what I'm saying, Mary.
Okay,
Yeah,
now,
Mark,
I am
you've had the floor
comfortable-
quite a bit.
One
Kenny, you
second,
wanted to
I'm
say
sorry.
something?
Yes, if I may. First of all, I've been to Savannah many times. And it's a beautiful city, and I think the parks are absolutely gorgeous. If I'm not mistaken, the developers, you did South Point Park? I can remember, that's where Smith and Walensky is, and I've been there many, many times. And I can remember the city of Miami Beach formed a CRA, and that CRA was the one that did the improvement on South Point Park. And I was there, in fact, May 21st was the last time I was there. And it's absolutely gorgeous. I've seen the transition over the last 15 years, and absolutely beautiful. I can remember when I was up in Illinois, flying down and going in, and the park is gorgeous, absolutely gorgeous. With that being said, I think we should move this forward. I think we should move it to the council. I think a charrette is an excellent idea for Griffin Park. That park is a sad, sad place. We have a beautiful fountain. We have a veterans, I'm a veteran, and we have a memorial there. We take advantage of it every Veterans Day, Memorial Day. I think the park could use some sprucing up. I think Mark's idea about it increasing business is wonderful. I think it's first class, it's on the money. And I think that we should move this to the city council and say, look, we should have a charrette.
CRA board.
I mean, the CRA board, one and the same, I'm sorry. That we should have a charrette, we should get the community involved in this, let's move it forward, I think it's a good idea. Now, when we get to the legality, can we respond? They just pulled out of it. I think the issue's moot at this point. I think they have a good reputation within the nation. I heard about your firm before. I think that we should just move it forward. Let's stop. You know what we're doing here, folks? We're getting caught up in the minutia of nonsense. They came up to us, the business board. I've been in this city over 40 years, and I've seen the deterioration. We get a chance now to turn this town around and make it good, okay? If we get a park over there that could be a showcase for the city. So let's move it to the CRA board and say, yes, come up with a charrette. We think this is a great idea for the advancement of the city and get everybody involved in it. And let's stop the nonsense. Let's stop finger pointing this one and that one and this one. Let's all get on the same team and move the city forward. That's what I have to say. I don't mean to be so emotional.
Is that a motion, Kenny?
I think we have a motion.
Well, I
motion
I
has been
can
seconded.
withdraw my motion because it's not specific to a company now.
Right.
The idea, if we want to bring it up to the board for discussion, for them, that's fine. And I'll move that motion to bring it up to the board for discussion.
I make a motion that we bring this up.
But you can
No.
second
There's a
hers.
motion on the
Second
floor.
hers.
Just make it clear, we're
Yeah.
withdrawing the prior motion and your second? You
Right.
agree to that? Okay,
I
so
agree.
that's gone.
And Marie made a new motion.
What's the new motion, Mary?
The new
excuse me.
motion is that we bring this up for discussion to the board to consider this charrette.
Okay.
And Chief was second.
And
Second.
she seconds it?
Okay. Any further discussion?
Yes.
All right, Mark.
I would like to say, Mary, that I don't own the thought that you were politicizing the process. I apologize if you took that as any remark I made to be an insult to you. I don't own the thought, and I apologize.
I accept the apology.
Yeah, thanks.
Okay. All right, we have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Any old business to come
Yes.
before? Oh, yes, Blanca?
I would like to ask what happened with the, what we had on the agenda last time, item number 2, that we were going to hire Mr. Schnittman to bring the CRA up to date, and what happened with that? Did it die? What happened?
This is a decision that's going to be made by the executive director along with the politicians, the people who are elected. This is something that personally I would recommend, but we are not there yet. The city manager and the executive director, who happen to be the same people, want to get some things out of the way before we come to this, but this is something that will come to you in short order.
Okay, but where the CRA was supposed to end if it was not...
It will end in 2016 if we don't extend. So we are well aware of that, and we are going to do due diligence for us to have a CRA for the next 45 years.
Okay.
All right.
Just before we move on from that item, to clarify, that item did come before this committee previously, and this
Yes, it
committee
did.
did recommend us moving forward with the agreement with.
Yes,
the
actually,
commission.
it did pass this process already,
Okay.
and it needs only to go to the CRA board at this point.
Okay, so that's the answer. And at some point, it will go to the CRA board, whether that's at the next meeting that's coming up next week or not, I guess remains to be seen. But this board already, advised it go forward, and it will go forward at some point.
Okay.
All right.
And just to follow up on that, do they realize, and I know Mr. Kuda, maybe you, the importance, I mean, the time is ticking. And if we don't get like ducks in a row so that, we can present a very good case to the people down, county commission.
We are all aware of the timing, and we are more concerned than you to have a CRA.
May I ask you a question? Yes. A little. Leslie, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to find out what's happening. I missed the last. I missed the last meeting. Yeah, I did miss the last meeting in February. What's happening with the that building on Northeast 6th Avenue between 122nd and 121st Street? The one that caught fire. It's on the west side. The guy was an architect, and he was going to do the building, and he asked for continuance. You know what I'm
Where's
talking about?
that at?
Notice
Which
6?
building? Oh, you mean that used to be the medical center?
Yeah. But
Oh, that was the president of the business development board. He just spoke to him. He's going to move forward. I'm not at liberty to discuss the details at this point, but maybe at the next meeting, if it's appropriate, we'll give you a report. But he was granted, he received a grant from the CRA, and he's going to...
He's an architect also?
He's an architect,
Okay.
yes. He's going to go on with the project.
Okay, so the project is still...
It's still on.
Okay,
Yes,
was
it's
wondering,
on.
I've been
It's on.
dragging on and on.
I think there was
The
some-
CRA has
there was
not...
some environmental issues with the property, was that?
Yes.
Inside. and-
Well, actually, for some more funding issues on his part.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right.
I didn't know.
Mr. Mondesir, you have a question?
I have a question for the CRA attorney. I couldn't help but to notice that both agenda items are by board members. Is there any legalities to that? How does that work exactly?
It's a discussion item, and certainly board members here, committee members are free to bring up for discussion purposes anything that they would like to discuss. If you have things that you'd like to bring up, I think who sets the agenda? The chair and the coordinator. Bring them up to Leslie. We'll put them on the agenda and discuss them. That's why we're here. That's why you're here. That's why somebody appointed you to this board, so that you could bring ideas forward, as Mr. Wallen and Mr. Each do, so that we can, move our redevelopment forward. So please do that.
Okay. All right, is there any old business to come before us? Any new business?
Move to adjourn.
Do we have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay.
Nobody's in favor.
Oh, yeah, we want to sleep here.
Okay.